Okay. सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं तं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं चैव ततो जयमुदीरये। जय गुरुदेव। Please help me which shloka we started with yesterday.
Yesterday was Bhagwan's reply. I think we did 2 shlokas or 1 shloka only.
You want me to just revise?
Yeah.
This,
You can read, you can chant Bhagwan Uvacha and then.
Astu.
I think it was shloka 34, if I'm not mistaken.
See the screen well and my voice is okay?
Yeah, it's fine, Bella. Go ahead. "35th shloka, Shri Bhagavan Vach, Asamshayam Mahabaho." Yeah, we were in that shloka.
Yeah, on my screen, the same shloka. Is it clear?
Yes, it is. It is.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Asamshayam Mahabaho Manodurnirgraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagyena cha Grihyate. Shri Bhagavan, Lord Krishna, Uvacha said, Mahabaho, O mighty armed Arjuna, Asamshayam, no doubt, Manaha, mind, Durnirgraham, very difficult to control, Chalam, agitated, Tu, but, Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, Arjuna, Abhyasena, by practice, Cha, and Vairagyena, by objectivity, Grihyate, is mastered. Shri Bhagavan said, no doubt, O mighty armed Arjuna, the agitated mind is very difficult to control. But, O son of Kunti, by practice and objectivity, it is mastered. I'll just read the titles. Arjuna's Kshamyatam. Arjuna's problem is universal. You want me to start from the Bhagavan Shloka interpretation as well, or my screen? I will just quickly repeat the interpretation. If Arjuna's problem is universal, if Arjuna's mind was nothing but agitation, what about those minds given to the modern phenomenon called stress? Something happens in Iran and having read about it in the morning paper, you are already upset before you even have your shower. So this problem is universal, Bhagavan is saying. Acceptance is the first step. Krishna accepts this one great psychological fact that the nature of the mind is agitation. One does not try to remove the agitation. One simply accept that it is agitation. Do not get agitated over agitation, thinking that it is something that you are going to solve. Also, do not think that your mind is something peculiar, because it is not. Any mind is agitation. Agitation is the nature of the mind, because the mind has to change. It is meant to change. Chanchalahi manaha. There is nothing illogical in the world. There is nothing illogical in this world. There is always some logic. Originally, of course, everything is illogical. But then afterwards, it is all logical. Within the illogical, we find there is a logic. That is, we understand that when something occurs, there is some reason for it. We must understand then that the mind is like this. This is its nature. Caring for the child again. By addressing Arjuna here as Kaunteya, meaning the son of Kunti, Krishna is indicating that the child was still there in Arjuna, which is where mind has its own root. This child has to be taken care of by the person. Therefore, there is double child care. When you were a child, someone else took care of you. But now you have to take care of your inner child. The first child care is done by our own parents or certain other adults, whereas this child care must be done by the person himself or herself. Practice of japa. Here the practice abhyasa of japa can also be included, because the mind's nature is not predictable. What your next thought will be also is not predictable. It can be anything. And since the next thought can be anything, since you cannot predict what it will be, you create a predictable situation. Then only can you understand how the mind moves. In this way, you get to have a certain hold over the mind, over the thinking process itself. This is why the mental repetition of a given mantra, a meaningful name, word, or sentence called japa is a must and is never given up, even by a sannyasi. So the practice of japa, I think on our group, our beautifully, Dr. Savita has mentioned the importance of japa. Even Sureshji has the usefulness of a mantra. A brahmachari has a mantra, a grihastha has a mantra, a vanaprastha has a mantra, and a sannyasi also has a mantra. There is no one who is without a word that is meaningful, either chosen by the person or given to that person. A peculiar mantra is important because it gives you a certain hold. That is why japa of some sort is common to all traditions. It gives you this particular capacity of knowing exactly what is going to happen next. It is the only situation where the mind is predictable. Contemplation is appreciation of a fact. In this way, the distance between the thought and the self becomes very clear. The thought is this, the thought is not everything. Thought is imbued with the self. This becomes very clear. And if I turn my attention towards the self, it becomes contemplation. I appreciate the self as independent of the thought. The more you appreciate this fact, thought becomes purely a rule. It is not taken as everything. This is the distance that we come to know. A distance that does not imply physical distance or particular condition of the mind. It is insight, appreciation itself, and
Not hearing you.
anyone else can help me to recall.
Bela, we cannot hear you.
You cannot hear? Maybe because my internet, it is showing the notification that your internet is
Unstable, no?
unstable.
Do you want
yeah.
me to continue? One
Yeah,
second.
yeah. If it is because if it is
1 second.
which page should I do, or please let me know.
Why the mind wanders? I think just go a little behind, Bela.
This is why we seek acceptance from others.
Appreciation, appreciation.
I think I'll share my screen
Okay.
because if your internet is a little shaky, you keep it for now. Let me just get this.
Yeah. Appreciation. Vairag, I think yesterday you had read, but the new verse was not there, right?
Not yet. We are in 35, not 34. 30. Yeah. 35. Yesterday we did 36 today.
Yeah, 35, the whole was
No, we've not
completed.
completed 35. We still have the abhyasa, the vairagya aspect to continue.
Yeah, we
Okay.
didn't finish the reading all of
No, we didn't finish 35th shloka still.
Yeah.
It'll take me a few seconds to get to the page because
Yeah, then I will just.
till then you
just
continue,
let.
Bela. I will just get my screen ready.
So I will say, even if it is a repetition, no problem, because
No problem. Continue, yeah.
Why the mind wanders. The second means for making the mind abide in itself, mentioned here by Krishna, is vairagya, objectivity. Why does the mind go here and there in the first place? The mind goes elsewhere purely lack of interest. The nature of the mind is to go wherever there is some kick, wherever there is something more interesting. Some interest must be there, and towards that it goes. Thus, without your trying to dwell upon anything in particular, the mind naturally goes towards the objects that it finds more interesting. The mind goes towards an object of love and towards an object of pain also, since pain means that something requires attention. These are the two places towards which the mind goes without any effort on your part. Why? Because one is interesting and the other requires attention. In an object of love, there is a certain joy, a certain pleasantness to which the mind naturally goes. And towards any object that hurts you, or has hurt you, the mind also goes quite naturally. One is positive, whereas the other, being something that requires attention, is negative. Objects of pain can be taken care of by abhyasa, whereas vairagya is with reference to objects of love.
Bella, I will
Abhyasa-
share screen 1 second.
Yeah.
So we are here, right? Objects of pain can be taken care of by abhyasa.
Yeah, I was just repeating only. So,
Right. There is some disturbance. I think your internet is a little unstable, Bella. I will continue. Okay. Objects of pain can be taken care of by abhyasa, whereas vairagya is with reference to objects of love. By abhyasa, a certain distance can be developed between oneself and the pain, although this may take some time. Vairagya is mentioned here separately because the source of all desires for happiness and security is what we call shobhanadhyasa, meaning that you superimpose certain attributes upon various objects in the world and then think these will bring you happiness and security. Shobhanadhyasa. We superimpose certain attributes upon various objects in the world and then think that these will bring us happiness and security. That a particular object is going to make me more secure is one such attribute. Or by achieving this or that, I am going to be different. I am going to become somebody. I am going to be acceptable to myself and to others. First to others and thereby to myself. This is where vairagya is required because we have this aspect of shobhanadhyasa. Why we seek acceptance from others? The seeking acceptability from others is nothing but self-acceptance. Self-acceptance through others. Why should anyone accept you? So that you can accept yourself. Therefore, seeking the acceptance of others can always be reduced to self-acceptance. Whether you seek the acceptance of others or you seek self-acceptance, it amounts to self-acceptance alone. Thus, either you seek acceptance through others or you yourself understand that you do not accept yourself and try to find out whether the self is acceptable, which is the real way of dealing with the problem, in fact. Seeking self-acceptance, then, we superimpose certain attributes upon certain objects, thinking that a particular object is capable of giving something more than it can really give. Superimposing attributes that do not belong to the objects is what we call adhyasa. When what is superimposed, adhyasta, is something positive according to your thinking, it is called shobhanadhyasa, meaning that which is very pleasing, for which there is a certain enchantment and infatuation. This infatuation or obsession is nothing but a superimposition. Shobhanadhyasa. So seeking self-acceptance, we superimpose certain attributes upon certain objects, thinking that a particular object is capable of giving something more than it can really give. Superimposing attributes that do not belong to the objects is what we call adhyasa. When what is superimposed, adhyasta, is something positive, according to your thinking, it is called shobhanadhyasa, meaning that which is very pleasing, for which there is a certain enchantment and infatuation. This infatuation or obsession is nothing but a superimposition, shobhanadhyasa. The meaning of vairagya or objectivity. The absence of shobhanadhyasa is what is meant by vairagya. Vairagya enables one to separate the objective attributes of any object from the subjective superimpositions one may have placed upon it. When superimposed attributes are understood as attributes that are superimposed, the object is reduced to its own status. That is, you see things as they are. You do not overimpose anything on it. To think, for example, that the absence of money makes you a nobody is not true. The absence of money makes you moneyless. That's all. This is a fact. The absence of money makes you moneyless. Moneyless, I cannot buy things, is another fact, which can be followed by still more facts. That you cannot buy is true, and that you cannot buy on credit is also true, since you have no money to pay later. Even if you buy on credit and do not pay it back, the time will come when you cannot buy on credit either. Who is going to give you credit if you do not pay? Endlessly, then, one can talk about facts. But that I am nobody is not a fact. It is a superimposition. The feeling of being a nobody is something very intimate because one has a stereotype of success, a conditioning that takes place by growing up in a society where money is respected with awe and wonder. In such a society, a person's success is talked about only in terms of money. To value money in this way is meaningless, really. Any mafia don, any mercenary or hitman may also have a lot of money. Just because a person has money does not mean that the person is successful. Nevertheless, this is the orientation of some societies in the world. There is also another orientation, that to be moneyless is something wonderful. This orientation holds that without money, one should be able to live one's life. Therefore, the person who lives without money, even a beggar who lives in the streets, is highly praised. This orientation is equally silly. Both orientations place a value on money, which is a problem. The problem is not the money itself. Money is just money. It is neither the problem nor the solution, although money can solve some problems like anything else. Even a toothpick can solve certain problems. The superimposition is not deliberate. Therefore, to think that money is the source of the problem is not correct. There is a superimposition here, which is not deliberately done by a person, but is something innate in a psyche that is exposed to a certain value structure obtaining in a given society, causing the person to place an attribute on money that is not really there. This superimposition, shobhanadhyasa, has to be neutralized by looking at money as money is, nothing more. To say that money has no value is just another adhyasa. You are seeing something that is not true. Similarly, if you add something more to money than is really there, it is also adhyasa. Reducing the objects to their own status is enough. By doing this, you will find in yourself a certain dispassion, which is vairagya. So looking at things as they are and not giving it either too much importance or too less importance. Money has its role. It can buy you things, it can buy you food, and that is it. Keep it where it belongs, in the pocket, not in the head. Otherwise, this is what we've grown up in a society which gives a lot of value to money. And that is why subconsciously we have this Shobhana Dhyasa towards money. A person is dispassionate in the sense that he or she is objective in his or her judgments. Vairagya is understood more in terms of objectivity. Unless we understand its meaning clearly, there will be more problems. It does not mean that there are no desires. To think so means that every desire becomes a new source of problems. We are not creating ideals here, which would only further distance ourselves from ourselves. Therefore, we must be careful not to pick up any further confusion here. Vairagya means to be free of the longing that implies superimposition, Shobhana Dhyasa. And this is accomplished by neutralizing Shobhana Dhyasa, thereby judging situations properly. So being objective with respect to everything, all the so-called objects that provide us happiness. And it is not just the absence of desires, because that will again become another problem. So Vairagya means to be free of the longing that implies superimposition, Shobhana Dhyasa. So letting go of that feverishness, letting go of the obsession. And this is accomplished by neutralizing the Shobhana Dhyasa, thereby judging situations properly. How do we neutralize? Neutralizing the superimposition. Any object of liking can become an object of obsession sooner or later, and therefore a problem. There are books being written today about people who love too much, meaning they cannot love at all. Because they cannot keep an object of love in its proper perspective, it becomes a problem for them. The object of love can consume a person so completely that it becomes an obsession, leading to attempts to control, vying for position, etc. To neutralize a Shobhana Dhyasa, one has to understand the difference between the objective value and the subjective imposition of values upon the object. And how is it possible to see this difference? Shankara defined Vairagya here as the capacity to repeatedly see the limitations in both the seen and unseen objects of enjoyment, meaning here and in the hereafter. Vairagyam nama drishta adrishta bhogeshu dosha darshana abhyasat vaitrishnam. I'll read this one more time. To neutralize the Shobhana Dhyasa, one has to understand the difference between the objective value and the subjective imposition of values upon the object. And how is it possible to see this difference? Shankara defined Vairagya here as the capacity to repeatedly see the limitations in both the seen and unseen objects of enjoyment. So Vairagya is the capacity to repeatedly see the limitations in both seen and unseen objects of enjoyment, meaning here and in the hereafter. Vairagyam nama drishta adrishta bhogeshu dosha darshana abhyasat vaitrishnam. Limitations here refer to what an object can and cannot give. Any object has these virtues, gunas, and some defects, doshas, or limitations. Therefore, one must see these limitations clearly. For example, money can buy, but it cannot make you enjoy. Seeing this is what makes you dispassionate. And once you are dispassionate, then your relationship with money is proper. It is an objective relationship, which is what we are talking about. Example, money can buy, but it cannot make you enjoy. That's such a profound thing, isn't it?
Very, very profound this is. Yeah.
So that is what Shankara means by saying, seeing repeatedly the limitations of in both the seen and unseen objects of enjoyment, meaning here and in the hereafter. Vairagyam nama drishta adrishta bhogeshu dosha darshana abhyasat vaitrishnam. Seeing things as they are. The capacity to look at things as they are is called objectivity. There is no judgment involved here, just an understanding of things as they are. This objectivity is especially important in terms of our subjective values because we do not know the objects of these values as they really are. We are not concerned here with the physical structure of objects, only with the value we superimpose upon them. And this is why earlier Swamiji had mentioned that all this begins in childhood. And therefore, we have to take care of this inner child within us. Because we have grown with this conditioning. This is good, this is not good. Money is important. And therefore, we also tell our children, this career you choose because it gives you more money. We don't tell them you follow what you're passionate about. We always superimpose that having more money is important. When I look at a given object, I see that there are a lot of projections involved. Therefore, I see these projections for what they are and I deal with them. By separating them in this way, I can look more objectively at how the object is going to make my life any better than it is now. Doing this again and again is abhyasa, and seeing the limitations of the objects is vairagya. Repetition is essential because the subjective value does not go away just like that. This is because the value is something that is not deliberately imposed upon the object by you. I will read this again. When I look at a given object, I see that there are a lot of projections involved. Therefore, I see these projections for what they are and I deal with them. By separating them in this way, I can look more objectively at how the object is going to make my life any better than it is now. Doing this again and again is abhyasa, and seeing the limitations of the objects is vairagya. Repetition is essential because the subjective value does not go away just like that. This is because the value is something that is not deliberately imposed upon the object by you. I'm reminded of the 24-hour rule that Swamiji had talked about. If there is something that you want to get, you desire, for instance, you want to buy what example should I give? A car, maybe. You already have a car and you want to buy a new car because it's a new model, or a mobile, you want to buy a new mobile. Swamiji says, give it a 24-hour, ask yourself and give yourself 24 hours. Do I really require it? And you go on asking yourself whether you really require it. And at the end of 24 hours, if you still think that you really require it, you're in need of it, then go ahead and buy. Otherwise, in 24 hours, because you keep repeating this question as to whether you require it at all, you will actually arrive at the conclusion that probably you don't, because you already have one and what you have is already being useful. So therefore, that repetition there is important. Doing this again and again, because the subjective value that we have does not just go away like that. If anyone wants to share anything or wants to say anything, please go ahead.
What is the last sentence? This is because the value is something that is not deliberately impressed upon the object by you. That I did not understand.
I think it is because it is a conditioning in the psyche. No, it has been coming from a long time. 1 second. Here we said neutralizing. The superimposition is not deliberate. Therefore, to think that money is the source of the problem is not correct. There is a superimposition here, which is not deliberately done by the person, but is something innate in a psyche that is exposed to a certain value structure obtaining in a given society, causing the person to place an attribute on money that is not really there. Because we have grown in the society and subconsciously it has become part of our conditioning, part of our subjective value that we give different things.
So it is not imposed by us.
It is not deliberately imposed by us. We've grown in such a conditioning. Success is, we have been taught from our childhood that being successful means having a good bank balance, having a highly paid job, having so many houses, having a car. All this is like conditioning in our mind. So it is because you're exposed to a certain value structure obtaining in a given society. Therefore, it is not deliberately imposed upon us. It's because we've grown in such a place. Right? So therefore, here Swamiji says, this is because the value is something that is not deliberately imposed upon the object by you. Because you've grown in such a society, you have to keep doing this again and again. This abhyasa, and seeing the limitations of the object is vairagya. Like for instance, a gulab jamun, you think it will give you happiness if you take one. But you go on eating 3, 4, 5, and the 6th one actually becomes so distasteful to you. So the object has its limitation. But that you superimpose, if I do not have gulab jamun, I'm going to be upset. I'm going to be happy because I will eat this gulab jamun, is superimposing a subjective value on it. Gulab jamun is a gulab jamun.
That is vairagya.
That is vairagya. Whether I eat it or not, I am happy. With or without the gulab jamun, I am happy. That is not going to add to my happiness. If I get it, I eat it. If I don't get it, it's fine. I'm fine either way. I'm complete, secure with or without it. See, all this is again boiling down to our happiness point that we talk about. Yeah. Objectivity.
I will be happy when I will be happy.
Correct.
And then I will be happy. So you
Right.
remove when and then.
Right.
You are happy. What we teach.
Objectivity. Yeah.
One more thing, is there something called law of diminishing effect. This thing, it doesn't grow like that. Even if you have millions of money, billionaire also, you will saturate. The point comes where they get saturated. So that's what here I understand from what Swamiji is saying.
And main thing is we should not be longing for it. That longing has to stop. I need it. Without that, I cannot. That makes you. That is desire. Having desire, okay, is not the problem. That longing. So we should have that vairagya for that longing. Should not be craving.
Is this something you understand, like what is needed versus wanting.
Correct. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Need-based living versus want-based living.
Yeah. So that's a subjective way of thinking, like you said. Yeah.
Objectively. I mean, it's need-based and therefore you do it.
That's true. So, I mean, in terms of the abhyasa and the vairagya, in that sense, okay. Here they call it as doing this again and again is abhyasa, seeing limitations of the objects is vairagya. What I kind of missed that point as well. Like, what does that mean? Like doing this again and again.
Doing this is how you can look more objectively at the object. That is abhyasa. By separating them in this way, I can look more objectively, like repeatedly looking at an object objectively and not subjectively. You are not putting your filter of judgments, your filter of values for the object. That Shobhanadhyasa you are removing.
Okay, you're not superimposing on the
Yeah.
object.
That you have to do again and again. That is abhyasa. And vairagya is seeing the limitations of the objects.
Okay.
Like buying a car.
Like buying,
Objectively,
money
if you
can
need,
buy
you
it,
will buy
but
it.
that doesn't give you happiness.
But just for the sake of,
Yeah. Yeah, you have the car now, and then after 1 year, you probably won't. You want to have another car because this is old. That's more of a no value to it.
Here I would like to share that in my house, that is my Nana's house, in my parents' house, we have a water heater that has been there ever since we were children. It is an electric water heater. It's like a drum that you connect to the, so you connect the plug to the socket. And it's an electric thing that heats up. It's a coil that heats up the water in the drum.
Mm-hmm.
And, my father he said this thing is still working for us. So why do we have to let go of it? I mean, it's working, it's having its function. We are able to heat water and it has its utility value. So many times we've told them, why don't you just get a geyser? It'll automatically heat up. And then he says, no, this still has its function. It's working and we are happy with it. I remember so many things like that when the rest of our neighborhood had sofa sets and everything. My parents, my father especially, he said we had cane chairs and he said these are serving their purpose. Just because someone else has got them, I don't want to be in a rush to go and buy things. So his living was very need based. It was not desire. It was not want based because someone else has it. I want to have it.
Yeah, keeping up with the Genesis.
Yeah. So similarly, if we can all think about, we all have to reflect upon our own life situations and see where all are we actually doing this Shobhana Dhyasa. Are we superimposing our subjective value on some objects and therefore we are acquiring them? Or are we coming from the space of need? Minimalistic living is this need-based living. What I want, I will get. I'm not going to hoard. It is that sense of being in that state of aparigraha, not accumulating. Generally, there is this tendency to accumulate more than what we require, because it will give us some security. This is what we found during COVID, when there is, people just went to the supermarkets and hoarded things, thinking that they will run out of supplies.
Yeah, for toilet tissues and
The
all this
supermarket
daily
came
supplies
empty,
and
actually.
stuff.
They were empty.
Yeah.
So objectivity and subjectivity. Suppose you buy a piece of bronze thinking it is an antique. In fact, it has been oxidized to make it look very old. An ear has been cut, the nose poked, and some scratches put on it to make it look as though it has fallen down a few times. All of this has been deliberately done to increase its value. And you buy it thinking it is an ancient piece. And when you realize that it is not an antique, you are disappointed and experience a sense of loss. Now, what did you lose here? Only the subjective value that you had superimposed on it. The bronze does not have a certain objective value. Sorry, the bronze does have a certain objective value. Thinking it is an antique, you had placed a subjective value on it. That subjective value has little or nothing to do with the objective value of the object. To think of a simple piece of bronze as something great is purely subjective, nothing more. People do the same thing with blue jeans, buying new jeans that have been made to look old. These jeans may even come with patches. Why? To make it look as though you have been around, for which you are prepared to pay a higher price. Again, this is purely a subjective value. From this, we can understand the difference between the objective and subjective value of an object. Maybe at Swamiji's time, the torn jeans was not in vogue. Otherwise, he would have mentioned that. Now, the latest as trend is, as we all know, torn jeans. The more tears it has, the more value it has. It beats my imagination to think how such a tattered jeans is priced more, and people go for such things.
In fact, people buy and cut the jeans, to make it look the putty hui jeans.
It is like, I don't understand the psyche. So you see how we are superimposing. It is not deliberate, isn't it? It is the way the nature of society is, that we are just being taken for a song. We go along with that society's
the
thinking.
name of fashion, people do all the crazy things.
Yeah. Trends and fashions.
Yeah. Tattooing and cutting their hair, coloring their hair, of course. The kids, they're funny. I mean, we are losing the culture, I'm not saying bad, but it's nice in India, but then now it's pretty much like, all these Western countries. India has changed a lot, considering the clothing and stuff like that, modesty. This is gone.
Taking antique gold, making it black,
Making it.
as if it is antique.
It is true, the gold, they color it and then make it looking like something old.
That is what I felt.
And then they will cost more price.
Many times when my daughter wanted it, I told her, what is this? It doesn't look good. Okay.
And
so we are deliberately putting value to it.
Same thing goes with diamonds. If you actually know how they are mined and brought and sold.
Yeah.
There's a movie called Blood Diamond. I
Blood
think
diamond, right? Yeah.
after that, my daughter and son, both of them, they've said no more diamonds. That's it. They don't even want to consider. They just said, imagine what pain those poor people
Yeah.
go through in
Now
order.
they have lab-grown diamonds. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
replacing it with that lab-grown diamonds.
And my daughter, she said, no, you're not also buying diamonds. How can you? Mama? Same thing with silk.
Yeah.
Silkworms, how silk is made. If you know, she said, you're actually you're draping yourself with the dead bodies of silkworms. How can you be happy with this? So, if you actually look at the value that people give for silk and diamonds and gold and all of this, when you look at how they are created, how they are brought to the market, it actually makes you, if it's sensitive, that is.
Yeah,
Makes
it is. The Blood Diamond, there was a movie about it, like
yeah.
if you see it, I know you won't really want to buy such things.
So previously you looked at the piece of bronze as an antique, and now, knowing it is not an antique, you look at it as bronze. The object itself is the same as when you bought it. It had no year then, and it has no year now. Only in your look is there a change. For all you know, it may be an antique. Perhaps the person who told you that it is not wants to take it off your hands and sell it for a fortune. If this were to happen, you would feel like a fool. If you find out, of course, in the realm of subjective value, anything is possible. Basically, what is here is the aspect of two things. One is accept things as they are, and second, do not be a football of others' opinion. The point I'm making here is that if the vision of the object as an antique goes away, then the attitude you will have is dispassion towards the object. If it is an antique, it is an antique. There is no problem. You simply look at it as an antique. That society has jacked up the price because of the subjective value placed upon it need not concern you at all. Whereas, if you are an antique collector, everything about you becomes antique. The point I'm making here is that if the vision of the object as an antique goes away, then the attitude you will have is dispassion towards the object. If it is an antique, it is an antique. There is no problem. You simply look at it as an antique. That society has jacked up the price because of the subjective value placed upon it need not concern you at all. Whereas if you are an antique collector, everything about you becomes antique. I didn't quite understand the last sentence. Let me read further, maybe we'll understand. There are people who want to collect and own certain objects to the point that it becomes an obsession with them. They call it an investment, but they will not part with it. For something to be an investment, you have to be able to sell it, but they will not sell because they have developed such an attachment for the object. There is no investment here. There is only a new problem that has been created. Only when the antique buddhi goes away, when the person can look at the object objectively, can there be vairagya.
It happens with even ancestral property, Yeah, so much attached. When I wanted to sell mine, there was nobody to look after it. I came out. My brother also is not there. Brother's son also went out. And it was lying there. And I wanted to sell it. Hey, why you are selling? It's your ancestral property has come. They were feeling so bad, No, keep it up, keep it up. He was telling. Means we are superimposing the value on it. Objectively, we have to look at it, no? Whether it is helpful or not helpful. Nobody is there, and who will use it? Just because it is ancestral property, we have to keep it like that antique, same thing.
It's more like sentimental value.
That's superimposing.
Yeah, superimposing that.
That too not deliberately by you, by the public. I was not having any attachment to it, but they were telling, oh, you are selling the old property, 100 or 150, your grandfather had given it. Oh, it's like that at all. I don't know, I don't have any. We have to see objectively, Very good. That is Vairagya.
Vairagya is knowing that an object is just an object. When a subjective value superimposed upon an object is gone, then the object is just the object. This holds for all objects. That there is Shobhanadhyasa, a superimposition that has taken place naturally. An extra attribute that does not really exist in the object has to be recognized. Therefore, again and again, I see the object as it is. And in the wake of this knowledge, the superimpositions go. This does not mean that you need to continually remind yourself, this is not an antique, this is not an antique. Such a japa you need not do. But with reference to money, power, and the acceptance of others, abhyasa and vairagya are both necessary. Seeing the limitations of objects and situations over and over again is very important if one is to master the mind. Repetition is necessary because the superimposition is not a deliberate thing. It is not a mistake that you have made by taking something to be more valuable than it is. If it were a mistake, a one-time correction is adequate. Then there is objectivity. But here, it is not a one-time mistake that there is superimposition. It is by being what you are, a psychological being, very firmly rooted in terms of your concept of success. All concepts of success and vairagya, dispassion, are within the range of psychology alone. Vairagya is nothing but the emotional growth of the person. Growth is strictly in terms of understanding the limitations of an object or situation again and again until the superimposition falls apart. Then the world does not have a hold over you. Otherwise, the mind runs towards certain objects naturally because they have been given such importance by the society. There is a certain pain involved with reference to certain old objects, what you could not get before, what you have lost in the past, which can cause problems in the mind. Whereas, if vairagya is there, the old failures, those things that were sources of some pain for you, fall apart and new objects also do not have any hold over you. This is what is meant by seeing the limitations, dosha darshana, again and again, thereby bringing about a cognitive change which frees the mind to a greater extent. I will read this again. There is a certain pain involved with reference to certain old objects. If any of you wants me to repeat any more paras, let me. What you could not get before, what you have lost in the past, which can cause problems in the mind. Whereas if vairagya is there, the old failures, those things that were sources of some pain for you, fall apart, and new objects also do not have any hold over you. This is what is meant by seeing the limitations, dosha darshana, again and again, thereby bringing about a cognitive change which frees the mind to a greater extent. By abhyasa and vairagya, then, the mind can be mastered. Manah grihyate. The mind that is always chattering, always preaching, the mind that is in the form of agitation, because it is away from the dhyaya, the object of meditation, Atma. This mind, this agitation that is so difficult to master can be mastered. But you cannot simply sit there and expect the mind to take care of itself. You have to pay some attention to it, as Krishna says here.
Kshamyadam Brahmaraji, could you please read the paragraph one, because my internet, I'm not able to hear anything.
Oh, is it? Which one do you want me to read, Beta?
On the last, I think the last two paragraph, please.
Yeah. The topic is Vairagya is knowing that an object is just an object. I will read this again, this whole thing. When a subjective value superimposed upon an object is gone, then the object is just the object. This holds for all objects. That there is Shobhanadhyasa, a superimposition that has taken place naturally, an extra attribute that does not really exist in the object, has to be recognized. Therefore, again and again, I see the object as it is. And in the wake of this knowledge, the superimpositions go. This does not mean that you need to continually remind yourself, this is not an antique, this is not an antique. Such a japa you need not do. But with reference to money, power, and the acceptance of others, abhyasa and vairagya are both necessary. Seeing the limitations of objects and situations over and over again is very important if one is to master the mind. Repetition is necessary because the superimposition is not a deliberate thing. It is not a mistake that you have made by taking something to be more valuable than it is. If it were a mistake, a one-time correction is adequate. Then there is objectivity. But here, it is not a one-time, it is not by a one-time mistake that there is superimposition. It is by seeing, it is by your being what you are, a psychological being, very firmly rooted in terms of your concept of success. All concepts of success and vairagya, dispassion, are within the range of psychology alone. Vairagya is nothing but the emotional growth of the person. So from being a child, wanting this and that in order to satisfy your desires and to be happy, you grow emotionally. Growth is strictly in terms of understanding the limitations of an object or situation again and again until the superimposition falls apart. So how do we deal with the superimposition? By repeatedly visiting that, paying attention to the objective value and not the subjective value. Separating the objective value from subjective value is one. Second, also discovering the limitations of this object. Then the world does not have a hold over you. I think what comes to my mind is the simple recognition of what happens in our sleep. When you sleep, it does not matter where you are sleeping, whether you're sleeping on a beautiful bed or you're sleeping on the ground or you're sleeping on the, out in the open. I mean, I will not say out in the open. The bed that you so desired, you wanted this beautiful bed and mattress and all that. Once you sleep, where does it go? A prince and a pauper, they have the sleep is the same. It does not depend on where you sleep. How, I mean, what I'm trying to imply here is all these possessions that we think give us joy, the subjective value that we give them actually becomes meaningless. when you objectively look at things?
I think at one point in your life, you may have different value. And then over time, the things, what you need is been reduced, right? I mean, as you have a big family with kids and all that, they're grown up, they're gone. Then we have to reduce to that need, rather than having to accumulate more and more type of thing. And yeah, that sounds like subjective value, and that those an objective value, that we have to look at it that way. This is very nicely given, these 3 paragraphs.
Yeah.
Mm.
So growth is strictly in terms of understanding the limitations of an object or situation again and again until the superimposition falls apart. Then the world does not have a hold over you. Otherwise, the mind runs towards certain objects naturally because they have been given such importance by the society. So what we have to reflect upon is see whether our actions and thoughts and ideas are governed by society, or are they governed by our need? Is it to fit into society that I want to do this, this, and this? Am I going by this value society has superimposed, or am I going by my objectivity? There is a certain pain involved with reference to certain old objects. What you could not get before, what you have lost in the past, which can cause problems in the mind. Whereas if vairagya is there, the old failures, those things that were sources of some pain for you, fall apart, and new objects also do not have any hold over you. Can someone give an example for this? One is, of course, Sureshji talked about the ancient house.
Yeah, that is, I still remembering the same thing.
Yeah, what you
What
could not
is
get before, what you have lost in the past, which can cause problems in the mind. Whereas if vairagya is there, the old failures, those things that were sources of some pain for you, fall apart, and new objects also do not have any hold over you.
Same thing, I'm having that now. Really experiencing it.
This is what is.
And also
Yeah.
it gives immense freedom from all this society conditioning and all that. What a freedom it gives. Oh my God.
Yeah, really. I experienced this but 10 years back only. I was not allowed to sell it, by others, not by my family at all. By the elders, besides our neighbor, no. Oh, Suresh is selling that, Suresh is selling that. That was superimposition of their views on us. Objectively, I am thinking that nothing is, nobody is there to look after it. So I cannot come and see and all that. Therefore, I was objectively saying it. But they are superimposing their values on it, That was really a wonderful vairagya. And I am having in a new house, but that also I am not attached to it. That's what he says. No? It says, and hold over sources of something.
And new
And then,
objects also do not have any hold over you.
Yeah, that is what.
That happens in our house also. Like, my we have one house in Palachi that we grew up, and then I tell them, if we are not, no one is there now. We all moved out of the town. Since other relatives, like the same way, oh, that house is really good house. You all grew up and all that. You shouldn't sell it. You shouldn't sell it.
That's
And
what.
then, this is what happens. And then my mother-in-law, who we inherit what my husband inherited the property, and then she says, well, we really worked hard and saved money and built the house. You cannot, don't sell it. That kind of, they put this kind of pressure on you, then it become a big dilemma.
Attachment, that is attachment.
Yeah.
Not only that, if the unsettled people's mind, that's very wrong.
Right. And then we don't want to, even if you want to do something, and what happens with your siblings and other people, interfering, it's a big hassle to deal with it, and just one of those things like that. We have like 3 different issues that we've been dealing with that. Like you brought it up, to me, it's more like sentimental value. And knowing all of this, reading all of this and knowing that Tattva, nothing is permanent, right? I mean, no one is going to take property or anything with us. And why we are to attach ourselves to all of this? And that is the question. When you say objectively, you have to look at it. Something, yeah, we want to, as long as we are here, we need roof on our head, like eating, need clothes to wear and eating and all that. So food. So that's what we need. And then after that, beyond that, we have to do some charity or do whatever we need to do. That's my thought also in here after reading this.
So this is what is meant by seeing the limitations, dosha darshana, again and again, thereby bringing about a cognitive change, which frees the mind to a greater extent. By abhyasa and vairagya, then the mind can be mastered. Manah grihyate. The mind that is always chattering, always preaching, the mind that is in the form of agitation, because it is away from the dhyeya, the object of meditation, Atma. This mind, this agitation that is so difficult to master can be mastered. But you cannot simply sit there and expect the mind to take care of itself. You have to pay some attention to it, as Krishna says here. That is the next shloka. Maybe we'll stop here and then close our eyes. Just recollect all that we learned and then come up with our own reflections. Jai Gurudev.
Before I forget, yesterday's in Satsang, Guruji told a word about the Nididhyasa. If you have heard some, I don't know, but Abhyasa and Nididhyasa, all he was about to tell it. And he told Nididhyasa in such a way that, no, that has to become your Nidhi, What a meaning he brought it. Nididhyasa means we have to practice so much that it has to become a Nidhi for us. So that is Nididhyasa. So beautiful. Yesterday's, I caught up that.
What do you mean by Nidhi? Nidhi
Nidhi
means,
means
yeah.
what you call it as
Wealth.
value, wealth, or wealth,
Wealth.
or something. You
Oh,
have got a talent.
oh, okay, okay,
That
okay.
also is a wealth, you know,
Okay, okay.
like
Yeah,
that.
Nidhi Jasna. Okay, I got it.
Nidhi dhyasa means
Hmm.
you have to do such a abhyasa so that it has to become your wealth. No one can take it. You know, it has to become like a talent. Nidhi. Such a beautiful, it hit me very nice. I don't know whether everyone heard it, but he told it in a very, Nidhi means, oh, Nidhi hona chahiye aapko. Immediately he told it, but how many people caught it or not? His words are so good. His words are, every word is good. We have to be very, very attentive to when he speaks. He speaks, we have to catch it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So I will just chant the shloka once and then I'll run through the main topics so that then we can reflect. Shri Bhagavanuvāca asamshayam mahabaho manodurnigraham chalam abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha gruhyate. This was in response to Arjuna's question of saying the mind is so difficult to control. It is always agitated. It is difficult, like you cannot hold it in your hands like air. So how do you practice? How do I get to that state? Sri Bhagavan said, no doubt, O mighty armed Arjuna, the agitated mind is very difficult to control. But son of Kunti, by practice and objectivity, it is mastered. So how he talks of him as Mahabahu first and then as Kaunteya, as a child. Acceptance is the first step. That you have a mind that is agitated is the first step. Half the battle is already won. There is nothing illogical in the world. Caring for the child within. This is why the mind can be mastered. One second, I'll just read this one. We have to learn to discover the distance between the mind and I. This is the whole trick here, which is why Krishna tells Arjuna that the mind can be mastered by practice and objectivity. Dr. Mara, you were saying something?
Yeah, my thought got interrupted. So
Sorry.
so go ahead. It will come.
Caring for the child within. So it's because these are deep-rooted values that we grow up with, the perceptions and the conditioning. Therefore, we have to care for this child within. And how we take care of a child, similarly, we take care of our mind. And then practice of japa. Because you don't know which thought will come when. It's very unpredictable. But through the practice of japa, you create a predictable situation in your mind. You know what is the next thought that's coming in. So that will kind of slowly discipline the mind. And therefore, a japa is a must and is never given up, even by a sannyasi. So this japa, practice of japa has to continue. The usefulness of a mantra. And then contemplation is appreciation of a fact. Appreciation is that this is the distance that we come to know. a distance that does not imply physical distance or a particular condition of the mind. It is insight, appreciation itself, and this appreciation becomes the reality. This then is the practice that Krishna says would enable one to master the mind. And why the mind wanders.
It's about the positive and negative feeling of the mind.
Right. It either goes towards an object of love and also towards an object of pain. Here, Swamiji had mentioned how it goes wherever there is something interesting. Or when there is pain. Why pain? Because you need to pay attention to it. So objects of pain can be taken care of by abhyasa, whereas vairagya is with reference to objects of love. Why we seek acceptance from others. This is also very beautifully explained by Swamiji. Ultimately, it is self-acceptance, but we want others to accept us so we can accept ourselves. Again, going back to the fundamental problem of us being insecure. In the introduction to Gita, the problem is stated. What is the universal problem? The actual problem is that of non-acceptance. Because I find myself insecure, inadequate, I want others to accept me so I can accept myself. And then is the question of Shobhana Dhyasa, the wrong superimposition of value on objects, situations, people. The meaning of Vairagya, objectivity. The absence of Shobhana Dhyasa is what is meant by Vairagya. Yeah, Annapurna ji, yes, taking care of the child means is your mind. It is our mind. We should treat our mind as our inner child and take care of it. And how beautifully Swamiji explained how we create the Shobhana Dhyasa, and it is not deliberate. It is because we are in a society that has these values and it's deep rooted in our psyche. And therefore, we require to do abhyasa repeatedly again and again, because it's not going to go in a jiffy in 1 second. It's a practice that we have to do time and again and again. And the superimposition is not deliberate. This we've seen, neutralizing the superimposition. So for this, we have to understand the difference between the objective value and the subjective value of any object, person, given situation. So what Swamiji, what Shankaraji gives us is, Shankara gives us is, Vairagyam nama drishta adrishta bhogeshu dosha darshana abhyasat vaitrishyam. So Vairagya is the capacity to repeatedly see the limitations in both the seen and unseen objects of enjoyment, meaning here and in the hereafter. Seeing things as they are, and objectivity, subjectivity, the antique, the bronze, all those examples. Vairagya is knowing that an object is just an object. And then, yeah. So, I would invite everyone to share. I know we've taken a long time. We have a few minutes left. We can share our reflections. So all this that we've learned, we will have to apply to ourselves, our thought process. Our thinking, innate thinking has to change from being subjective to being objective, to see things as they are. That is such a beautiful takeaway. And that I like, particularly like that one concept that Swamiji brought up as investment. We tend to buy things as an investment and then we don't let go of it. We hold it. Then how does it become an investment then?
Yeah.
We hold
Unless,
on.
yeah. If you hold on to it, it's going to lose its value anyway. I mean, yeah. You're not gaining anything from it.
Jai Gurudev. I like that when we get irritation, we have to let it go. We should not get, oh, I'm getting irritation. I like that one. I mean, when we get angry or upset, we have to let it go that it is my nature of the thought. So it's okay, it will go. And I'm trying it really working up. So thank you so much.
Yeah, that is true.
I used to feel guilty. Oh, I didn't get up today morning. I wanted to get up 4 o'clock. Still, I want to stop tea. I'm not able to stop tea. Okay, let it go. When it happens like that. But still I'm trying it. It's really working. That guilt, I'm dropping it. So it is working nicely. Thank you so much.
Yeah. But here, no, like for how Guruji tells us, you need to know what to hold on to and what to let go. See, you hold on to your commitment.
Yes.
But you let go of things that that are not productive or not effective in this path. For instance, you let go of your hurt, you let go of your anger, you let go of your impatience, you let go of, should I say, if you want to scream at someone, you let go of that. You let go of your complaints, grumbling, but don't let go of, you should stay committed to something, isn't it? Otherwise,
Yes.
there is no dridata.
Yes.
That dridata, that discipline has to be there.
Yes.
So that is where you stay committed. There, if you show vairagya, then I suppose then you're not rooted on this path. You'll not be steadfast. I would not say rooted. You need to have a certain degree of discipline, commitment. For instance, if you apply this knowledge, this vairagya thing to, say, study of the Shastra, you say, okay, you'd have a discipline. Every day I'm going to read this, or every day I'm going to do this. And one particular day you're not able to do it. There, if you show vairagya, then the slippery mind will continue. Another day will come, another day, and then you'll go on excusing yourself. So there, I suppose you should have that discipline and commitment.
Yes.
But in your mind, you will not hold on and go on feeling bad the whole day that you did not. That you let go. Of course, yes, that certainly is there. Otherwise, you cannot live that day. You'll go on reprimanding yourself. That you let go, but you must stick on to that commitment. No, I mean, I think that's how I think I look at it.
But do I have to do the work that I left today, tomorrow, or maybe like should I continue whatever like reading chapter 1 and tomorrow it will be chapter 2. So I didn't read chapter 1 today, so chapter 1 and chapter 2 I should read on the second day.
Correct.
Okay.
Or if based on your time you have, you read chapter 1 and then make it a point to read chapter 2. See, that is why for Kriya we tell them, no, do a mandala, do it 40 days without a break. Then becomes part of you. Otherwise, Sudarshan Kriya also we can say, no, doesn't matter if you've not done one day, continue doing that. The next day, your day one starts from the day you miss one day. The next day, you start another mandala, because you have to train your mind. You have to master your mind. Otherwise, we've seen how slippery the mind is. No,
Yes.
it can go.
Yes.
You don't know what
Absolutely.
thought will come the next time.
Yeah, because I was so morning, I couldn't join today the class. So I was feeling whole day like a irritation. I don't know, something I was not feeling good. Then I thought, oh, this, if I don't continue knowledge, then I will slip down.
Right. I think having that pinch is important, not feeling, should I say, guilty and bad about it.
Yeah.
But that little pinch will make sure you attend again and again.
Yeah, that kind of going into the material things. That
Right.
was I was feeling, yes.
So that is the acceptance, that self-acceptance. Once you accept that you have a problem, half the problem is already solved.
Yes. Thank you,
That is
Brahma.
what Swami Gurudev says, no? You can let go vairagya, but the longing for the divine, you should not let go. That is the one thing that is the one thing that will drive us on this path, will keep us on the path.
Okay.
You cannot say, oh, Swamiji says the vairagya, so why should I have vairagya? I'll have vairagya for this. The mind will come up with all crazy excuses. But we should, with care, take care of it. And slowly get it on.
Thank you, Brahma. Thank you so much.
Otherwise, it's a tendency the mind might misuse this knowledge, no? It'll use it as a shield, not as an umbrella. As Gurudev says, always use knowledge as an umbrella, not as a shield. Not as a shield to justify our fallacies, justify our mistakes. No. We use it as an umbrella. Yes. Anyone wants to share anything?
Jai Gurudev.
Yes.
Yesterday I was reading over again like the shloka which was covered. So the steadiness of mind, I think we read in chapter 4. I don't remember the shloka, but in that we read that the breath, the inhalation and the exhalation part, if you focus on that, it helps to steady your mind. I don't remember the shloka number, but what I had the memory of, like it, when we read it, it just seeped into me. So I was just remembering that whenever your mind gets unsteady, you bring it to your breath, you start focusing, observing your breath, and you see the inhalation and the exhalation, and somehow it was like it was connected to some the ajapa jap also was mentioned. I don't remember wholly, but what I had in my memory was that if you take the mantra, if in the inhalation part and the exhalation part, then your mind get it becomes more steady, or rather, like in this shloka, it is mentioned that your thoughts would not they will not go waywardly, like they will you will be focused more because you are focusing on the breath, and side by side you are focusing on the mantra also. Then you the coordination between the breath and the mantra is there, so it makes your mind steady and more focused. This was just I remembered yesterday while reading it, but I don't remember which shloka it was there, but it was in chapter 4. This I remembered.
Okay.
The number of shloka I don't remember. It was mentioned about the inhalation and exhalation of the breath.
Yeah, there is one.
I tried to find out, but I could not.
It's a natural, madam. When you concentrate on your breath, you are in the present moment. See, when your mind goes off means you are not in the present moment. So when you focus it on the breath, so while breathing in and breathing out, inhaling and inhale out, you are at the present moment. You come back to that present moment, again start it. That's what is not focusing. It is you are bringing back the mind to the present moment, and from there again you go on. Either by mantra or by breathing, that is prana only. Chaitanya, you are witnessing the Chaitanya. The breath you are witnessing coming and going means you are coming back to the present moment. And present moment is infinite.
I think, which is true, Dr. Sureshji. I think, is this the shloka, Dr. Savita? Apane juhvate pranam prana pranopanam tatha pare pranapanagati rudva pranayama parayanaha.
Yeah, this was.
These are the different types of yajnas. In one of the yajnas, other yogis offer the act of exhalation into that of inhalation. Even so, others, the act of inhalation into that of exhalation. There are still others given to the practice of pranayama, breath control, who, having regulated their diet and controlled the processes of exhalation and inhalation, both pour their vital airs into the vital airs themselves. All these have their sins consumed away by sacrifice and understand the meaning of sacrificial worship. Yeah, this is the 29th and 30th verses of chapter 4.
Thank you, Dr. Brahma.
We have all these tools with us. We only have to practice them, bring them to our awareness, and that is why again and again, abhyasa is important.
And
why?
Dr. Savita, so when you said you were practicing japa, when do you practice? In the morning, like I don't find during my prayers, like when I pray in the morning, I do this Gayatri month, and there's no sankalpa behind it. I just I do this with the intention that I am all the tap of my jap of this Gayatri mantra, I release it to the Akash for the Jan Kalyan. Like what small way in small way what I can do to the society is that I give my one jap mala to the Akasha. So it when you don't have any sankalpa, you do it with a very free mind, and the focus part is more when you do it with a free mind. Rather, when you do take a sankalpa, your mind gets wavered. This I have observed while doing japa.
So you also said you do the Brahma Jnanavali, right? So
yeah, Brahma Gyanvali was introduced by Nana ji. Then from that day, I took out the printout and I start my prayer with Brahma Gyanavali chanting. It's really very nice when you chant daily before starting the prayer. It's really a blessing from Nana ji, which I really appreciate.
It is beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, we got so much from Nana ji
I am so grateful to Dr. Brahmara that she introduced all this thing for us.
Right, and I also saw that Brahmara and even Vijayji posted some Brahmanyana again, and it is really nice. Yeah, for me it was a little difficult to read it because of that.
No, the English version is there. For pronunciation also there is the English translation is there. So it's, if you break it, you can.
I found it now, so I should able to practice it. I've been listening to it several times, so that once I listen to it, it'll be nice.
You chant along with the YouTube, then it would become easy for you.
Easy, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Jai Guru Dev, another thing which I would like to appreciate about Brahmaradi is, like somebody spoke about the pranayam and all that of chapter 4. While she was talking, in the meantime, Dee went behind and looked for the verse, the Sanskrit shloka, and she immediately came out and started, giving us that knowledge. This is what it was. That is very appreciable.
I think it is all his grace that is getting all this done. I think it is again, like I repeatedly say, it is a collective consciousness that is keeping the tempo on.
Yeah, but the bhava that came to me, I wanted to share rather than keeping in me. That is very appreciable and so apt and so agile you were. It's really, very creditable. Not many of us who reach that level, can immediately do this in the small, in hardly any time,
I just
Thank
happened to have Bhagavad Gita next to me and I just picked it up and I looked for it. That's all. It is nothing very great, but that you appreciated it. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
So we'll continue tomorrow. I just wanted to share one last thing is that we are moving house. So we have all the opportunity to practice Vairagya and not to hold on to things. That is something that Prem and I we've decided we'll consciously do. We'll take only those things that we need because we don't want to clutter that place. So again, when it comes to decluttering our house, when we look at objects, usually the mind comes up, says, oh, I can use this later, or I can give this to my child, and then you want to keep it. But then if we can very dispassionately, objectively look at things as they are, and then say, that's it, this does not have any more need, I can give it to someone, I can donate it to someone that can use it. Not only will your house be decluttered, it will also enable that object that is not being used, it will give it some utility, someone else can use it. So I thought I'll just share this because we're talking about Abhyasa and Vairagya over here. Jai Gurudev. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.
Thank you.